We have assisted me in the opining department, old friends of the show, Robert Weiner, Democratic strategist, columnist, and former communications director for Clinton Drug Czar General Barry McCaffrey. He's also former chief of staff for the House Committee on Aging. Bob, good to have you back.
Pleasure, Alan. But, you missed part of that headline. Another nutcase like Aurora comes to Newtown, and both of them use the AR-15, which Clinton had banned, an easy fix, at least a partial start. I am so tired of the babble that is every excuse to support the NRA's leadership, even though the NRA rank-and-file membership by majority support further steps against these kinds of guns that cause mass murder. When in the United States we have 35,000 homicides or suicides with easily accessible guns, and in every European country it's 1 to 200, tell me there's not a relationship. I will take the numbers of the 1 to 200 in every European country versus our 35,000 here. Even in the suicides, it's because the guns were accessible. Even in the case of the AR-15s, it's because a kid got it from his mother. Those are terrible things to have around. And then the argument is if they can't get that gun, they'll get something else. Well, I'm for if you make it a little less possible and they use something a little more difficult, you would have had 3 murders in that school instead of 27.
Well, no, you don't know that they wouldn't have defaulted. You don't know that they wouldn't have defaulted to just the next lower available weapon and still had the same homicidal accomplishment. Actually, Bob, Brad Plummer points out something else, too. He says, while gun violence did fall in the 1990s while this assault ban was on.
You think?
Bob, good to have you back.
It's a pleasure, Alan. And just for our listeners, I'm hosting Senate Budget Chair Kent Conrad to discuss the very points you've raised at the National Press Club, 10 o'clock on Wednesday, and I invite any of our listeners who are interested to come on down.
Will do. I'm actually thinking about that myself.
Yep.
Does the White House realize that if Boehner doesn't get some ground, he can always take back that promise not to use the debt ceiling hike as serious leverage after all, whether Obama likes it or not? How do you see this unfolding, Bob Weiner?
Well, I think this is an enormous step by Speaker Boehner, and I wrote a bipartisan piece in Roll Call about a month ago saying Speaker Boehner would be a hero and a statesman if he really deals and realizes that he can get some of his caucus but get the rest of the majority out of the Democrats if he deals on the fiscal cliff and gives up a hair on the taxes. He's done the taxes. He's done the debt ceiling. The White House, though, may be hard-pressed to have to give up anything on Social Security and Medicare because it's hard to justify doing that when those don't really contribute to the numbers on the debt.
So, Bob, essentially honoring those IOUs requires us to add to our national debt, courtesy of both crazy-ass parties. Your take on it, Bob Weiner.
Well, what Amy said is absolute nonsense, or else you got to tell Halliburton, Boeing, and Northrop Grumman that the money we owe them has to come out of IOUs, and we really can't pay them either. So what the government owes, and the difference here is that seniors have actually paid in, and their premiums have put that much more money in, so the government has overspent, but not on the basis of what the seniors paid. They've spent it on other programs.
Where do we get the money to make good on the IOUs? Let's say I agree with you for argument's sake. Let's say I agree with you for argument's sake.
Boeing and Northrop Grumman for the military. Where are you getting the money? The real answer is what Jim Clyburn, the number 3 Democrat, said. Do what President Obama has claimed. Use half of the war funding that we're ending for deficit and half for people programs. That's where you can get the money, plus the tax breaks for the rich.